Hello. Welcome to the PG-ish podcast. I'm Erin, a corporate marketing manager by day, podcast host by night, and single mom to 2 young daughters 24/7. In short, PG-ish parenting is the cliff notes to personal growth as a parent. Since those kiddos are always watching and learning from the adults in their life, like you, PG-ish is parenting guidance-ish to support a life worthy of imitating. Welcome and enjoy. Happy Thanksgiving week, at least here in the US. Now, I'm packing to head to Tahoe to hang with the fam, and it's been a while since I've had to pull out all of my warm gear. Not to mention loading up on all the supplements to avoid getting sick as I get on all the planes, trains, and automobiles. So, shout out to some of my favorite companies like Vuori, whose joggers and leggings I can't live without. They keep me cozy and warm, and no joke, they're the softest items I own. Their quality clothing are built with a happiness guarantee, and I tell you what, that's a value I can get behind. I also can't go a day without my Pique Teas, which are so easy to travel with. Not only do I get to sip on my favorite Sun Goddess matcha while on the go, but I also bring with me the BT electrolytes, elderberry vitamin C, and ginger elixir to make sure I'm not only caffeinated without needing to stop at overpriced coffee shops. I mean, seriously, have you been to one lately? But that I'm also keeping up my immunity. Pique Teas are rooted in research and contain the highest quality ingredients, as well as support a healthy immune system with antioxidants that you're likely not getting in your typical morning brew. If you want to support PG-ish, the best way is to check out these companies. Find out more in the show notes. But let's dive in. So no one ever said becoming a parent was easy. In fact, becoming a parent makes you face a lot of your deepest, darkest, repressed emotions. It makes you look at your own upbringing and question basically everything. In my opinion, you eventually come to the conclusion that everyone was doing their best, but sometimes you still wonder how things could have been different. You try to do things differently than your parents because the lessons learned are too great to ignore, yet that's definitely easier said than done. Same goes for knowing that kids are your greatest mirrors. You know, what they see and hear, they're gonna do. So showing up better for yourself means showing up as a better role model for your kids. But dang, can that be challenging? Don't you agree? And then you've likely heard that you need to have the conversations about pretty much everything at home first if you want to make an impression and create the narrative your child will live by. I mean, this goes for everything, whether it's your religious beliefs, your thoughts about drugs and alcohol and sex. I mean, even down to kindness and how you treat people. These conversations need to be had first at home. Otherwise, they will likely create a narrative that they received from someone else that may not be in alignment with your family values. And then, of course, through these conversations, you're going to be affirming your values by how you model these concepts, right? So if you haven't noticed already, parenting is a freaking journey. It's a journey of trial and error, thousands of conversations and moments of repair, of healing and getting out of your head to connect with a little person. Now, since I haven't been able to get Dr. Becky Kennedy on my calendar to have a conversation with her just yet, check out this mom of 3 and founder of Good Inside share what she believes is the single most important parenting strategy. Here she is.
All parents yell. No one knows what to do next. Well, I'm determined to fill this gap. After all, there's almost nothing within our interpersonal relationships that can have as much impact as repair. Whenever a parent asks me, what one parenting strategy should I focus on? I always say the same thing. Get good at repair. So what is repair? Repair is the act of going back to a moment of disconnection, taking responsibility for your behavior and acknowledging the impact it had on another. And I want to differentiate a repair from an apology, because one apology often looks to shut a conversation down. Hey, I'm sorry I yelled. Can we move on now? A good repair opens one up. And if you think about what it means to get good at repair, there's so much baked in realism and hope and possibility. Repair assumes there's been a rupture. So to repair, you have to mess up or fall short of someone else's expectations, which means the next time I snap at my kid or my husband or my work colleague, Instead of berating myself like I did that night in the kitchen, I try to remind myself I'm focusing on getting good at repair. Step 1 is rupture. Check that off. I crushed it. Step 2 is repair. I can do this. I'm actually right on track. So let's get back to my example. I'm in the kitchen. My son is in his room. Well, what will happen if I don't repair? That's really important to understand and helps us make a decision about what to do next. Well, here are the facts. My son is alone, overwhelmed, and in a state of distress because, let's face it, his mom just became scary mom. And now he has to figure out a way to get back to feeling safe and secure. And if I don't go help him do that through making a repair, he has to rely on one of the only coping mechanisms he has at his own disposal: self-blame. Self-blame sounds like this. Something's wrong with me. I'm unlovable. I make bad things happen. Ronald Fairbairn may have said it best when he wrote that for kids, it is better to be a sinner in a world ruled by God than to live in a world ruled by the devil. In other words, it's actually adaptive for a child to internalize badness and fault, because at least then they can hold on to the idea that their parents and the world around them is safe and good. And while self-blame works for us in childhood, we all know it works against us in adulthood. Something's wrong with me. I make bad things happen. I'm unlovable. These are the core fears of so many adults. But really, we see here, they are actually the childhood stories we wrote when we were left alone following distressing events that went unrepaired. Plus, adults with self-blame are vulnerable to depression, anxiety, deep feelings of worthlessness, none of which we want for our kids. And we can do better. And it doesn't mean we have to be perfect. When you repair, you go further than removing a child's story of self-blame. You get to add in all the elements that were missing in the first place: safety, connection, coherence, love, goodness. It's as if you're saying to a child, I will not let this chapter of your life end in self-blame. Yes, this chapter will still contain the event of yelling, but I can ensure this chapter has a different ending, and therefore a different title and theme and lesson learned. We know that memory is original events combined with every other time you've remembered that event. This is why therapy is helpful, right? When you remember painful experiences from your past within a safer and more connected relationship, the event remains, but your story of the event, it changes. And then you change. With repair, we effectively change the past. So let's write a better story. Let's learn how to repair. Step 1. Repair with yourself. That's right. I mean, you can't offer compassion or groundedness or understanding to someone else before you access those qualities within yourself. Self-repair means separating your identity, who you are, from your behavior, what you did. For me, it means telling myself 2 things are true. I'm not proud of my latest behavior, and my latest behavior doesn't define me. Even as I struggle on the outside, I remain good inside. I can then start to see that I'm a good parent, identity, who was having a hard time, behavior, and no, this doesn't let me off the hook. This is precisely what leaves me on the hook for change. Because now that I've replaced my spiral with groundedness, I can actually use my energy toward thinking about what I want to do differently the next time. Oh, and I can now use my energy to go repair with my son. Step 2, repair with your child. There's no exact formula. I often think about 3 elements. Name what happened, take responsibility, state what you would do differently the next time. It could come together like this. Hey, I keep thinking about what happened the other night in the kitchen. I'm sorry I yelled. I'm sure that felt scary, and it wasn't your fault. I'm working on staying calm, even when I'm frustrated. A 15-second intervention can have a lifelong impact. I've replaced my child's story of self-blame with a story of self-trust and safety and connection. I mean, what a massive upgrade. And to give a little more clarity around how to repair, I want to share a few examples of what I call not repair, which are things that come more naturally to most of us, definitely me included. Hey, I'm sorry I yelled at you in the kitchen. But, if you wouldn't have complained about dinner, it wouldn't have happened. You really need to be grateful for things in your life, like a home-cooked meal. Then you won't get yelled at. Not only do these interventions fail at the goal of reconnection, they also insinuate that your child caused your reaction, which simply isn't true and isn't a model of emotion regulation we want to pass on to the next generation. So let's say we've all resisted the "it was your fault anyway" not repairs, and have instead prioritized a repair that allows us to reconnect. What might the impact be? What might that look like in adulthood? My adult child won't spiral in self-blame when they make a mistake and won't take on blame for someone else's mistake. My adult child will know how to take responsibility for their behavior because you've modeled how to take responsibility for yours. Repairing with a child today sets the stage for these critical adult relationship patterns. Plus, it gets better. Now that I've reconnected with my son, I can do something really impactful. I can teach him a skill he didn't have in the first place, which is how kids actually change their behavior. So maybe the next day I say, you're not always going to like what I make for dinner. Instead of saying, that's disgusting, I wonder if you could say, not my favorite. Now I'm teaching him how to regulate his understandable disappointment and communicate effectively and respectfully with another person. That never would have happened if instead I had been blaming him for my reaction. So here's the point where you might have a lingering concern. Maybe you're thinking, I have a feeling my kid's older than your kid. I think it's too late. Or, I've done a lot worse than you did in the kitchen. Maybe it's too late. Well, I mean this. If you have only one takeaway from this talk, please let this be it. It is not too late. It is never too late. Well, I definitely do not special in math, but here's something I know with certainty. If you have a child, that child is younger than you are.
What I love about Dr. Becky's approach, and what I've always admired about her ever since she got on the scene the last few years, is that first, the responsibility lies with you as the parent. And I always say this, it always starts with you. You can't really have any good relationship if you haven't repaired with yourself first. And then second, you remain good inside. Regardless of the feelings or the situation, you're simply a person having a hard time. And this is something that we definitely need to teach our children. Otherwise, they can take on a different identity. And then finally, like she said, it's never too late. It's never too late to do pretty much anything. Heck, just in this last year, both my dad and my stepdad have reached out to ask for forgiveness for how they raised me. And yeah, it's hard to reconcile that for sure, but I'd much rather have that conversation now than never have it at all. But that is a story for a whole other day. My friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Links to Dr. Becky's website and the full talk and her book, Good Inside, can be found in the show notes. And finally, if you find PGH helpful, interesting, or encouraging, please share this episode with your bestie and follow PGH on your favorite podcast platform so that more parents can learn and grow alongside their kiddo like you. See you next time.